Hi everyone! Welcome to Souped Up Recipes. Today we're making Chinese pickles. These tart, crunchy bites show up in all over China. We use it as noodle toppings. It can be side dish or appetizer in fancy restaurants. Some street food use it as flavor enhancer. There are many Chinese recipes that requires Chinese pickles. Although there are people that don't like pickles, I think that they are delicious, inexpensive, and good for you. The recipe is actually quite simple and basic, but it's also easy to fail because of some small detail if you are not careful. There are lots of tips and tricks that I would like to share, and I'm also going to talk about the science behind the process, which will allow you to understand clearly and succeed on this project. So let's get started. First, let's talk about containers, tools, and how to prepare them. You want to use glass, ceramic, stainless steel. Avoid aluminum, brass, copper, zinc, iron, which will react with the acid brine during the fermentation process. I got here all kinds of choices. Different sizes of glass jars with plastic or metal cover because the lid will not touch the brine directly, so they're okay to use. Here I want to talk about the traditional Chinese pickle jar. It's a fat ceramic container with a shoulder around the neck, and it has a bowl that's upside down to cover the jar. This is the best thing to make Chinese pickle because it's ceramic. The light cannot go through, which allows the healthy fermentation keep going. You can fill up the shoulder with water and it will seal the jar completely. Also, it can release the extra air during the fermentation automatically. I cannot find this anywhere in Ecuador. I do want to bring one from China though, but it's too heavy and it's delicate, so I gave up. Maybe next year. They do have it on Amazon and I'll put the link in the description. If you want to buy it, go check it out. However, if you cannot buy it, the regular jar will do a good job. You just need to put a little more effort in it. Before you use the container, you need to make sure it can be sealed completely. This is how I check it. Fill the jar with some water, cover the lid and turn it upside down. You see there's no liquid dripping down. That means this jar is good to use. You see this one? The liquid is dripping slowly. Do not use jars like this. I made a mistake. I didn't check this one carefully and I used it. We'll show you what happened at the end of this video. Make sure you wash them completely with soapy water. Rinse it several times. Then one last time, rinse it with boiled hot water. Be careful, don't burn yourself. Put it on a clean towel upside down. Let it air dry or sun dry. Also, clean everything else that you will need for making Chinese pickle, such as a big pot for boiling the brine, some trays that you will need for drying the vegetables, cutting boards, knives, other utensils such as chopsticks, scissors, spatula. Let them air dry as well. While that is drying, let's talk about the brine and spices. There are two basic categories of pickles according to the types of solution. The first type is preserved in vinegar. It tastes extremely sour due to the low sodium content. Most of the bottled kosher cucumber pickles in the supermarket are preserved in vinegar. Chinese pickles are mostly soaked in a salt brine to encourage fermentation, which is the second category of pickles. It has a higher sodium content, tastes saltier, and sour, but not as sour as the first type. I grew up with Chinese pickles, so this is what we are going to make today. I'm already washed this pot. As I mentioned before, avoid using aluminum, brass, and iron pot. Pour in 5 kilograms of water. It's a big amount because I plan to make a big batch of pickles. Although tap water will work, I did use bottled water just to avoid any uncertainty. Now, let's talk about the salt. It's best to use pure salt. Sea salt, pink salt, kosher salt, it doesn't matter, as long as the label says it's pure. Table salt usually contains iodine and other additives, which can cause clouding of the brine and discoloration of the pickles. It doesn't affect the ultimate safety of the pickles, but it makes them look bad. There is salt that is special for pickles. It is called pickle salt. They have it on Amazon, and I'll put the link in the description if you want to buy it. Also, the amount of salt you put in is adjustable. The salt-water ratio, although anywhere between 5 to 8% is good, I suggest you to do a higher ratio in the beginning. For 5 kilograms of water, I used 380 grams of salt. That is 7.6%. For Chinese pickles, we never throw the brine away unless it is spoiled. Some families have the brine that has been passed by few generations. As long as the brine is not spoiled, you can keep it forever. What we are making today is called the beginning brine. A higher salt content will keep the bad bacteria from growing. After a few times of using it, it will turn into an old brine, which has a balanced amount of good bacteria. Those activities will keep the brine itself staying good. By that time, you can lower the salt amount. After the salt, we're gonna add some sugar, not too much. This is optional. Some people like it slightly sweet. Some people prefer no sugar. Depends on your taste. We're gonna season it with some spices. I'm using 3 grams of star anise, 5 pieces of bay leaves, 5 grams of cinnamon, 10 grams of Sichuan peppercorn. All these spices can be adjusted to your own preference. This is just how I like it. Cover this and bring it to a boil. Once it is nice and bubbling, let it cook for another 10 minutes. Turn off the heat, let it sit overnight with the lid on for 2 purposes. First is to let it cool down completely. Second is that it will have enough time to soak the spices, to maximize the fragrance. While the brine is sitting, let's talk about the vegetables and how to prepare them. These are the things that I'm going to use today. I got celery, cabbage, long beans. If you can't find long beans, you can use green beans. This is Chinese turnip radish, my favorite ingredient for Chinese pickle, but there are only 2 left in the supermarket today. Well, we'll make more of it next time. I also got lots of carrot. They're super crunchy because I love pickled chilies, so I got 3 kinds here. They have different heat levels. You can use whatever vegetables you like, but I personally would avoid using leafy greens that will turn soggy after pickling, such as lettuce, spinach, and baby bok choy. Wash, rub, and rinse all the vegetables under running water. For celery, cut off the tough end and discard the leaves. I like to cut it into 2.5 inches long pieces. Lay them on a clean tray. For the carrot, remove the top which collects mud and other dirty stuff. Then cut them into finger size. Cut the turnip radish into finger size as well. One thing I like to do differently is to save the top green part. Trim off the dirty surface. I think this is the best part out of the turnip because it's extra crunchy. For the cabbage, I just simply cut it into 8 big parts. Chilies are a bit time-consuming. You need to discard the stem without ripping it off. Basically, you still want to keep a little stem on the chilies. I don't know why, but that's what my parents told me to do. Those big chilies are easy to work with, but if you got these baby chilies, well, probably would take you 40 minutes to finish it. Just simply put them on the tray. I normally don't do anything to the long beans. Place them on the tray as well. You see the way how I put it on the edge of the tray? That allows the air to circulate around it so it dries faster. Oh, almost forgot one important ingredient, ginger. I peeled the skin and sliced it. Finally, all the ingredients are nicely prepared. I usually let it sun dry 5 hours or air dry overnight until there's no water on the surface. This is the next day. Take a closer look. They are completely dried. The surface gets a little crinkled, also shrinked a little bit. Check the cabbage. There's no water underneath and the leaves are soft. That is exactly what you want. Now you can start putting the vegetables into the jars. The cabbage goes in first because that is the biggest size. Then you use the smaller vegetables to fill up the empty space. You know, kind of like a puzzle. You want to maximize the use of the jar. One thing about chilies and peppers is that they do make the brine become spicy as the day goes by, so you want to be careful when using it. Now the brine has been sitting overnight. You just go fish out all the spices, pour it into the jar. Be sure to fill it all the way up close to the lid. That is the way how you keep the least amount of air inside. If there is too much air packed between the lid and the liquid, there is a higher chance it will get spoiled. Finish it with 2 tablespoons of high alcohol content liquor. At least 30%. The higher, the better. This jar is 3.5 liter. If it's a small jar, you will need to use less alcohol. Okay, that is basically all the work you need to do for making Chinese pickles. Now you just put them into a dark place. I know this looks bright, that is because I'm filming. They are actually stored in a dark pantry. Let them ferment for 20 days. In the first week, every 2 days you need to go open the lid and let it air out for a few seconds. What happens is that during the fermentation, the bacteria creates lots of air which needs to be released. And I will show you what is going to happen if you don't do that. I didn't open this in the first 5 days. You can tell from the lid that it's inflated. You do not want a mess like that. Well, it's not the end of the world. You just need to add a little more brine and fill it up again. Once you pass the first week or 2, depends on what kind of vegetables you are pickling, you don't need to let it air out anymore unless you are adding new vegetables into the brine. Today is 3 weeks later. All the pickles are done fermenting. As you can see, the color changed. The long beans, some of the chilies, they were green. Now they just look brown. There's no bubbles rising up anymore. The first week you can really see lots of activities going on. Now it's just peaceful. A successfully made pickle. The brine should be clear, clean. There shouldn't be any weird stuff floating around. It should have a pleasant fermented pickle smell. It should not smell like alcohol at all. The pickle should have nice color. If it was green, they usually turn into brown. But if it was red or yellow, they usually will stay the same color. If you know anything about the safety of pickles, comment below so we can all learn. Now, let's talk about how to keep the brine forever. Make sure you use clean tools to take the pickles out of the jar. This is very important because you don't want to introduce any new bacteria into the jar. Then you will have empty space for the new vegetables. Adjust them to fit into the jar. The veggies always dilute the seasoning, so you should also add some salt. The ratio should be about 5 to 8% of the total weight of the new vegetables and water. Fill the jar with clean water all the way up to the lid again. Oh, almost forgot. You can add some sugar as well, depends on your taste. After 3 or 4 times adding new vegetables, you can start adjusting the balance between the saltiness and the sourness. Make sure it fits your taste. As long as you follow the rules that I talked about before, make sure the brine is not spoiled, you can keep using it forever. Now, let me show you how does it look like when the brine is spoiled. I made 7 jars of pickles this time. Only this one is a little bad. You see those white stuff floating on top of the liquid? Looks like some type of fungus. That is the bad bacteria. They will only grow on top of the liquid. That is where they can reach the oxygen. This is just the beginning of the spoiling. If you let it continue, it can be even worse like this, and it will smell like alcohol. When you're making fermented things, there will always be some uncertainties that are hard to predict. That happens and you either discard this whole batch of pickle or you still want to fix it. There is a way that my parents and my grandparents taught me to fix the brine, but I wouldn't recommend that because there is no official test to prove this is completely safe. Although my family done it many times and I have eaten it many times and I'm still alive. Also, I think the reason this happened is because this jar is not completely sealed. I guess I just missed checking this one. That's why pre-work and preparation are very important. A good Chinese pickle, you can eat it right out of the jar. It's very crunchy, has a good balance between the sweetness and sourness, and it smells good. It's very distinctive. I don't know how to describe it, but when you smell it, you're just like, that's Chinese pickle. They can be stored in a jar like that, in a dark place, not a bright place like this, for 5 to 6 months. You can use it as appetizer or side dish or cook with it. I will share some recipes in the future that requires Chinese pickle. So I hope you give this a try soon. And if you did, leave me a comment and let me know how it goes. Also, make sure you click my channel name and take a look of all my recipes. I'm sure you will find out how to make your favorite Chinese food. New videos coming out every Wednesday, and I'll see you next time. Bye!